indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item B on the agenda is the approval of a consent agenda, which includes business items for the agenda and the September 11th regular meeting. You have to start over again. Get in.
I think we're good.
Item B, consent agenda. Approval of the agenda and the September 11th regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item B2 are citizens' comments. Are there any citizens to be heard this afternoon? And welcome. If you'd be kind enough to state your name and your address.
Hello, my name is Joetta Jordan. I live at 2207 Prairie Street.
Very good. Thank you. Please.
Okay, now, I'm here because I know that my property was, well, it'd been on the blighted list. When I first heard about it, it was, I think, back in 2018. I spoke with a guy down there. I don't know if it was Steven. I'm not sure who I spoke with, but I spoke with him. The property was given to me from my grandfather. I spoke with him back then about, the conditions and, the stuff that needed to be done. I was told that long as the property is being worked on, that they see that, that there's improvements, that it'll be took off the blighted list. Next time I talked to someone, it was in 2020, I think. But it wasn't about like a time limit that I had to get any work done, anything in that order. My mom just recently opened a store. The store is operating, it was running. I wasn't aware of all of the things that she had to do, the steps that she had to take to get it open the correct way. No one reached out to me about anything. The coding guys came by a few times. She had her permits. There's still things that she got to get done, but this was posted basically saying that the Redevelopment Authority has took over the property, new ownership. I wasn't informed about anything as far as the building being condemned. Since 2018, I have got new electric service put in. Simonian Electric did that. I have had, the electric service, new gas lines put in, the water and everything. Everything is on in the building. I know there's work that needs to be done on the outside. I'm aware of that, but I also was told that the windows needed to be boarded up if it was not being used. I've put windows in, a majority of the building. I still have a couple to go. I applied for one of the redevelopment grants, to help get some assistance with, doing the work to the building. I was denied due to my income. But, instead of posting the sticker, I think it would have been fair if someone would have came to me and, said something before they posted the sticker to give me an option, at least let me know. So my question is, from the day they posted this, is there like a time limit I have to get the corrections for the outside of the building done to get took off of the blighted list?
I'm sorry, was that a question for us?
Yes.
I'm not sure that we're prepared to respond. I'm going to maybe defer to Mr. Snippert, and maybe is there a staff person she should contact to?
I've spoke with Mr. Snippert.
Okay. Yeah, and we spoke as recently as Friday evening when we exchanged emails in regards to the tour of the property that we had with the code officials. Okay. And the next steps that we would proceed with communication and an effort to move to giving her the property back. Okay. That, I had to look into the file, that it was a property that was identified and placed on the list, and we're certainly willing to work with her, and so we will continue to work toward that.
Okay, now, the paperwork says that there was no like no updates to the building at all, but there have been updates. Nobody just came out to check.
Right, and then not to save that this is citizen comment, not dialogue, certainly like I revert back to my email that we'll set up a meeting to bring you into the office and walk through the steps to proceed at this point.
Okay, so there's no, I don't have 30 days or 130 to,
You have my email
yes, I do.
and my comment within there that I will advise our legal counsel to stay on any legal action at this point until we meet. So we're not going to move into the preliminary objection phase at this point. We're going to have a conversation and see what we can do to work to a solution.
Okay. I'm looking forward to hearing from someone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Donald Crenshaw, and I'd like to pass something out to each of you, if it's okay, a packet that you would have to review.
Thank you.
The packet that I just passed out, the first thing I would ask of the board and Mr. Snipper to execute the relinquish agreement that you see before you that was sent to me by Aaron. And that particular agreement, I agree to do everything there. And I crossed out, if you look, the $4,000 that he asked me to pay as a deposit in order to enter into this agreement. The agreement is signed and notarized by myself and the wife, asking that this was notarized on the 12th of July. Since then, if you look in your packet, you will see photos of what the house looks like as of today. The house has a new roof put on it, $10,000. It has a new front porch put on it, $4,000. It has $8,000 worth of windows that's been put in. It also has pictures in your packet from when it goes back to January of 2022, when the property was put on the blight list for several reasons. A car that was not owned by me, the city police ended up moving the car. So when you look at the reason for blight, abandoned cars on my property, I don't pay to move them. I call the city and they remove them, and they did. And if you look also, you have in your packet, at the very last pages, is a list that's showing we pulled 2 permits in 2021, one for this particular address. The other one was for 1620 Plum, Reed Street. We also have on the blight list, long and short, board, there's been 5 of my properties identified to be on the blight list. I don't really understand why. If you go to any of those properties right now and look at them today, they're all cleaned up. They meet code, but as Aaron has stated, code does not determine what goes on blight lists, and I'm really confused with that, because when I follow the procedures that was given by Aaron a few months back at a board meeting, that you go through code enforcement first, and my thought is, if there's a code enforcement violation, windows broke, grass not cut, doors open, you get cited. After you get cited, you go to district justice. If he still can't get anything done and I've been cited and I'm still a mess, then you cite me again. Then you start over, then you take it to blight. But the reality of it is none of my properties have ever been cited the $25 first fee for utilities or anything other problems. So I'm asking the board today, there is the 11th, a hearing to determine value on the property. And at that point in time, we will continue continue the fight as we've done on 2708 Downing. We're waiting for the judge to come back and determine a value. You do not own the property until you actually pay me for it. So technically, the Redevelopment Authority doesn't own 2708 Downing. If you look at it now, the grass isn't mowed, there's garbage all over, but you took it. You took it and you're not cleaning it up. It looks a mess. I think Attorney Sundberg said it was a mess to have a house have to ride around and look at it. Well, you look at what's there now, it's a mess. I mowed the lawn. The only reason I stopped was the last hearing or the last meeting I had with you guys, and we talked about who really owned it. And it's still up in the air, I guess, legally until you pay me for it. Do you own it? Do I own it? But it's an eyesore. So at the point we don't want to go down that road and end up in court again on 22nd Street, we've spent the money to renovate it. It's there. You go by. Aaron has just stated it's not the redevelopment's desire to take property. It's to keep it up to code. So I ask as you look at that property, and I've asked for the persons from the code enforcement to come out and look at it, and if there's a code violation, let me know and I will immediately fix it. But we haven't gotten that yet, but I do ask that you guys relinquish today at this meeting the hearing that is scheduled for the 11th, so that you don't continue to spend money fighting with me over acquiring properties that we are fixing up. My goal again is to continue to make affordable home ownership and to fix up and make opportunities for people that are low income to have a place to live. And I'll end it on this. If you look at the majority of the land bank properties that they're acquiring, as the young lady just came before us, gentlemen, women, it's in the minority community. We have 2% home ownership in Erie for minorities. Why is this city taking what few houses the minorities own because they have maybe some code issues, when you can take part of the money that's out there, help fix it up, keep home ownership, and raise the minority home ownership level from 2% to maybe 2.25%. But if you look at the majority of those houses, they're owned by minorities. Help us, please. Thank you.
Thank you. You have another citizen?
City Councilman Michael Keys, 114 East 41st Street.
Thank you.
So one of the reasons why I'm here is because in the course of my business, I hear so many stories about people being either houses being transferred or inherited, and people losing them or being posted for blight or being taken by the Redevelopment Authority. And most people in the community, don't know what to do when they get a posting. And several of them, didn't own the houses when they were initially blighted. And so one of the things I'd like to recommend, and I know this isn't the blighted property, but your board chair serves on both, is that before you post somebody, it would be good that if you started a process that you reach out to the current owner, you invite them to the meeting. So if there has been things that have changed since the last time you looked at it, or circumstances have changed, invite them to the meeting, hold the meetings in person. A person's property is the very most important thing next to their life a lot of times. And the fact that we're doing this and we have to ascribe to some Zoom that nobody really has access to unless you're really intentionally looking for it, I think is a disservice to our community. And we also hear, part of the story of the young lady too, that there's $14 million that the city has awarded to help fix up these properties. And as I go across the city, I know no one who has received any of it. And so I don't know where it's being dispersed, and I don't know the status of some of these accounts, but I will be insisting to find out who is being awarded, what's the status of it, what's their addresses, because we also have to make sure that ARP money was supposed to be for those who have been heavily impacted by COVID and those who've been disenfranchised. And even though we gave the money to an organization should be held to that same standard of the original legislation that came out of Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. Another citizen?
Hello, I'm Aaron Crenshaw. I live at 1755 East 26th Street. I'm here today to ask the question regarding ARP money like Mr. Keys just spoke upon. And my question is some of the programs that have been removed and why the certain programs have been removed, as far as homeowner rehab loan program, the rental investment program, the Erie small and minority contractor incubator, the homeowner rehabilitation loan program, City of Erie homeownership initiative program, small business diversity loan and grant program, business refinance and restructure, urban core and anchor building redevelopment, residential construction and development revolving loan fund RLF for 5+ units. And I was just asking, a lot of these programs, would be a great help, especially for the young lady that spoke before Mr. Keys. And honestly, what Mr. Keys was pointing on as far as where's the money going and who's the money for. I feel like a lot of these programs that have been removed could have helped with a lot of the problems within the city, especially with the blight issue. Just like I stated, the young lady that spoke before, she tried to get funding, but I guess she wasn't qualified. And I just feel like we need to re-evaluate where the money's going and the programs that we're cutting that could ultimately help the community. And that's not a question that I need answered right now, more of a rhetorical question, just so everyone in the city and the people above understand that that's a question that the people are asking. Where's the money going and why are these programs that could ultimately help the community being cut? That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? Hearing none, we'll move on to item C on the agenda, which is our finance report.
Thank you. Sorry. First, I just wanted to thank you for your patience with me. April has been off on Mondays being super mom, but she'll be back next week, so things hopefully will run smoother for you. But on the back of the third page is the check detail. I know we spoke a little bit about that last time, and there was some, you all were wondering what when a check is written out to an employee, what that was. Everything that's listed here is all phone reimbursement and mileage reimbursement, okay? On the back of the 6th page, you're going to find the statement of financial position. And our total current assets in our bank account right now is $10,543,621.77. Our current fixed assets are $313,743.38. And our retained earnings are standing at $309,875.
Questions? Is there a motion to accept the financials as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, on to item D, the report of the executive director.
All right, thanks, Chuck. So a few things just to go over with the board today. As far as the Redevelopment Authority staffing, we're currently advertising to fill a position of a data entry office assistant part-time position. So just as you're aware, you know, the board has graciously approved some softwares for us to help make us more productive. In an effort to do that, we have to load a substantial amount of paper file data into those systems. So this position will come in and have a sole purpose of basically taking every single file within our office, scanning every document, and getting it up to make us a little bit more efficient and productive, especially on the blighted property side of it, as you know, we manage the blighted properties for the city of Erie as the last line of that process. Having all of that information in that PPS system that we purchased will allow us to keep better records of communications with individuals, condemnees, and any of the historical code violations in that with that process. On the other side of that, it'll be on our mortgage side of it with our deferred payment loans and our affordability period liens that are on properties. On the mortgage software that we have, a compliance issue we have year after year with the city of Erie is that we're not following through with our mortgages that we currently hold on properties, some of which date back to the mid-'80s. And we're supposed to be following up with those owners and making sure that they're abiding by the terms of the mortgage. So once we get that stuff uploaded into that mortgage software, we'll be able to track that better.
So is there like an annual review process of each of the mortgage holders? Or?
That was built into every contract, and that is something that the authority
Something we
historically
haven't-
not done, and something that this mortgage software will allow us to follow up on with relatively minimal staff time, because it can be strictly automated to send out letters and do that follow-up. So that's what, you know, so that's what that position is. And then, of course, with the departure of Ms. Keel from the blighted property manager position, I've had some time to look through that process and speak with other staff and try to figure out what will best work for that position. So we're kind of looking at a couple different options, looking at kind of retooling how that works, you know, and it, you know, just, you know, as the board is, you know, may or may not be aware, you know, blighted property position did not exist up until April of 2022. That was the first ever position held to solely manage the blighted properties. Before that, it fell back onto the executive director to manage that, but since we wanted to, you know, move a little bit more aggressively on the blighted properties with the ARP money, we brought on that position. And so we're still working through that. So we're kind of tooling how we want to fill that position, leaning more toward an assistant instead of another coordinator, just somebody to assist the current staff member to facilitate the day-to-day operations of the blighted properties, the condemnations, and all the properties that we certainly have under developer proposals and in relinquishment agreements and such. Any questions with that?
I do have one about the data entry position. So will that be an LTE or temporary position until the bulk of the upload is complete, or is that thought to have the position be more permanent?
Right now, we're looking at it as a part-time position to certainly see how it works, with the potential that if it becomes an asset to the authority, given that we're data heavy, we're paper heavy because of the federal grants and requirements, that it could potentially become a full-time position that would be an asset to the authority.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron, you did indicate part-time. Is that temporary part-time, or is it just a temporary position full-time?
It's temporary part-time at the current time, is what we're advertising and hiring for. We're certainly trying to manage that, you know, to what point, given that the ARP money has a sunset date, and the sustainability of the authority and staffing post that funding that we've been generously given, you know, to make sure that the authority can continue to staff as many positions and be an asset to the city long term.
Yeah, that was my concern, the timing. If we do temporary part-time or temporary full-time, how much can get done within a certain time frame. I think that was my concern.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so I'm certainly looking at the fact is this person will have a sole focus, is that they won't be responding to clients who walk in, answering phone calls, or any of those other tasks which take away from other staff members, duties. So we just really want to evaluate it and see how it works. I fully anticipate that it will become a full-time position, but we were just kind of looking at many different options. We looked at bringing and going to a staffing agency and bringing somebody in through that way, but just the cost versus return, we just felt that we could probably bring somebody in, for a higher hourly rate through us instead of giving a chunk of the money to a staffing agency, and then with the potential to hire them on after a term of time anyway. So there's just kind of I think a win for looking at that. And we would, with the staffing agencies, we were going to have to interview and do all of the other tasks that that we're currently doing in the interview process.
So we just have really this one position open then at this point, and everything else is filled, or?
One position open, bladed property assistant, will be
Okay.
posted here today or tomorrow.
Okay.
And then that will be open. We did advertise for a bladed property coordinator, but we're kind of in that, and not to get into the HR consultant, but what is the salary range? What are we looking to pay? What's going to get us the best candidate for our position? So we didn't quite get it with what the position is currently paid at.
Mm-hmm.
So we're evaluating that and waiting to kind of hear back from the consultant on that.
Okay, great. And glad you utilized the consultant. Those are especially areas that we wouldn't expect you and your staff to know. I mean, it's good to have professionals to guide you on that.
Yeah, thank you. So, and just to that, point, the HR consultant, we met with them September 29th. We passed out job descriptions to every employee, made sure that they had the opportunity to go through there, take things off they don't do, add things they do, so that we can, make sure that as the HR consultant reviews those job descriptions and provides us that compensation study for those positions, that they're a true representation of what each staff member actually does, so that we can make sure that we're paying accordingly, because, as we're all aware, turnover costs us productivity and time for other people that could be better served doing other things. So they said that's about a 4 to 6 week time frame to turn around that compensation study. So we'll be looking for that sometime there, mid-November at the latest.
Okay.
ENGP, if anyone's seen, last week at the mayor's press conference, we announced that we were awarded a PA Council on the Arts Creative Communities grant for $100,000 that will be utilized in the East Bayfront Greenway Trail project area. It's $25,000 a year for 4 years. So we're going to utilize that and Groundwork Erie to go out into the community, help with that plan, get the community and resident input as far as what we want or what they want to see us do with the vacant lots that we have, and be able to proceed as efficiently with that and have that community input. So that's a grant that will be a tremendous asset to that East Bayfront Greenway Trail as we proceed. So Aaron, Carey, and I are going to State College for a training on that this Thursday and Friday. So we look forward to meeting with the other awardees across the state and collaborating on things we can do to utilize that to its fullest. And that is all I have for my report this time.
Questions or comments for Mr. Snippert? Good. Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is our solicitor's report, and you don't look like Mr. Sundberg, but will Mr. Smith be
So he provided his report. I didn't know he wasn't. I know we were in court this morning. We're in court Wednesday and Friday this week. We have a lot of stuff going on, so feel free to read through that report. If there's any questions the board has, I'll be glad to pass those along and get Gene's answers to you. I know we have a lot going on and a lot of different things in many different processes currently. So they're very busy.
Is Mr. Smith's report presenting later on in the meeting?
Yes.
Or, okay, I wasn't sure. Hey, I'm new here, so I don't know. All right, on to item E, unfinished business, election of officers. Did we forget to campaign?
You can see my billboard out on Facebook.
Okay, so we've got, I'm just trying to remember how to handle this. So there's the current appointees that are presented in your packet. Are there nominations? Do we accept nominations from the floor for any of the positions?
Perhaps to expedite, I'd move the entire current slate for re-election.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, unless Kevin really doesn't want to be secretary again, as he signs his stack of checks.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded. It sounds like we've had our discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries as follows.
I mean, we did depart from the normal procedure of electing Erin as the chair because she was absent from the meeting.
Oh. We're getting better. We're, our improved procedures then.
I'll send her a congratulations email after the board meeting.
Indeed.
She snuck by.
It's lucky. So. All right, now we go on to item 2, loan program update.
All right, so, and this is where Ed is here. So in your board packet, you'll see a letter from Attorney Smith in regards to the authority's ability to operate consumer loans. And so I provided the letter that he provided to us. He went into great detail and spent a substantial amount of time researching this on the authority's behalf and feel that it was very thorough of a review. And really in the end, just kind of, I think, said that it's just not in the authority's best interest to operate what would be considered consumer loans based upon the requirements of such. So I don't know if, Ed, if you had any comment on that?
I'm hoping everybody had a chance to read the letter. As Attorney Alberstadt knows quite well, consumer loans are highly regulated as opposed to commercial loans. And they're two different beasts completely. And if the Redevelopment Authority is going to get into providing consumer loans, rather, they're really going to need to have specialized training of individuals, specialized staff. I mean, most of the banks who do, or credit unions who do this kind of work, have staff. This is all they do. They do the truth in lending. They do the real estate settlement compliance. In addition, there is compliance. There are audits, for example, of the loans. It's highly technical. I spoke with Philadelphia and Pittsburgh Redevelopment Authorities. They do have what they call our loans. They're really grants, and we've done that in the past. I know that it's really a grant, and if the person pays it, or if a person complies with the grant, then the loan is forgiven. There's no interest charge. It's really not a consumer loan. Philadelphia does have, they developed a nonprofit agency specifically to do their consumer loans, and they advise me that as far as they're aware, they are complying with all of the statutes. I just don't think the Redevelopment Authority is currently staffed, and you folks know better than I. I'll defer to you. And I mean this respectfully, has the expertise or the personnel to comply with what you have to comply with in a consumer loan area.
I know we've discussed even outsourcing the process, and that we got nowhere on that as well.
Yeah, what a financial institution would charge us to administer a program on our behalf didn't net the authority anything that would be beneficial to us long term. I mean, other than providing that funding out there, that it would be better served under a commercial structured loan within the authority to provide a better benefit to the neighborhoods and the residential housing stock on that side of it.
So I'm here for, if anybody has any questions specifically, I'm happy to answer them.
I assume if the Redevelopment Authority wanted to allocate, its dollars to like a nonprofit that might have the staff to do it and, comply with everything, all the requirements and everything like that would still flow through to, a sub-grantee.
Correct. Who is the lender? Correct.
Okay.
We need to comply. And I'm not aware of any nonprofit that would do that, I can think of currently,
Yeah,
at least in the area that I can.
no. there's
I think
nobody.
Philadelphia actually just developed their own to do that work.
Yeah, yeah. Given their population versus our population
Correct.
and their
Correct.
volume,
Right. It's unfortunate, but that's where we're at.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
okay, appreciate that, thank you.
All right, so that then takes me on to the B under 2 is loan program allocations. And so in meeting with the city in regards to the loan program, several months ago, we had specifically allocated $400,000 of the homeownership incentive program to a deferred payment type setup. And the city requested a letter determining that the Redevelopment Authority could not provide consumer loans. And that's when Ed started doing his work and provided this letter. So we're going to move forward with getting this up to the city, and then we'll be able to move into getting applications out for the homeownership incentive program. But in this, we had one other loan that was initially approved as a consumer loan, which on your paper is C, Homeowner Rehabilitation Loan Program. So it is my proposal to move that money over to the new housing production program and increase that bucket of funding so that we can provide more funding for the rehabilitation or construction of housing stock within the city of Erie. So this kind of goes hand in hand. We met, like I said, we had met with the city a couple weeks ago and talked through this, and certainly they said, bring us back within 30 days your recommendations as far as how to reallocate these programs within your agreement and some new benchmarks, to comply or to match up with that. So certainly I wanted the board to have the opinion to, review that and provide the go-ahead to make that recommendation to the city to alter our original loan program plan.
And can you remind me again the types of qualifying activities under the new housing production? It's new construction?
Yes,
right?
new construction or the rehabilitation of existing housing stock. So really set up as a construction loan up to $200,000 without board approval, or over $200,000 with board approval on a 12-month interest-only term with the ability to flip it into a 10-month loan at that point for a period of, or a 10-year loan at that point at an increased interest rate of interest and principal. But really, like I said, the primary source was to build or rehabilitate housing stock, whether that be a private developer or a nonprofit neighborhood organization who purchased a property and needs to rehabilitate it, or they want to build on an existing lot, either be the redevelopment authority lot, land bank lot, or some other privately held lot.
But based on Ed's research, it would exclude the person who actually owns the home from participating in the program?
Yes, it would have to be a business entity of some sort that would pull the loan.
I know that we desired to generate income from a revolving loan fund as opposed to a grant program, but I'm disturbed that we're not going to have any homeowner rehabilitation component to the disposition of our ARPA funds.
We still have the Healthy Homes program, and we'll touch on that in the ARPA part of it.
But isn't that one that's been difficult to find qualifying applicants for a long time?
No, we have qualifying applicants. We have lack of contractor capacity. We have a great need and lack of contractors to facilitate that work.
Well, I think it would take more discussion than a vote at this meeting, but I would like to see $1 million in a grant program if we can't put $2.5 million in a loan program for homeowner rehabilitation of their own housing stock.
With no income restrictions.
Well, we'd have to talk about that.
Okay.
I think.
I'm just trying to think about how, to give you some thoughts and ideas on a program.
I think we would want some income restrictions. I'm not sure they'd have to be as strenuous as some of our other programming.
Sure, and possibly even some target areas, some focus areas, so that the resources are being focused and noticed as opposed to just scattered. I think that Erie would benefit from a more neighborhood-based or focused process then. So,
I mean, certainly, I mean, not just to even touch on Jay's point, is even $1 million into the, to add to the homeowner incentive program with a rehabilitation component, like a 203K loan through HUD or such, where a individual would purchase a home and then have the funding to rehabilitate it or take care of some needed issues, would certainly be a benefit as well, knowing that the majority of the housing stock in the city of Erie has some deficiency in one way or another. So just a thought as well.
Just as a counter to Mr. Alberstadt's comment, would the additional $2.5 million or so in the housing production program, would the thought be to fund larger projects, more projects, both?
Probably both. We have in Center City roughly 18 lots, several large concentrations of 6 to 8 lots that are next to each other. So we have some areas there, and that's, we'll touch on that new production program under the ARPA grant program, so we want to be able to provide some kind of assistance there to make that happen.
Okay. And then, to your knowledge, does either the city, the county, or the County Redevelopment Authority, do any consumer loans that Erie residents would be eligible for?
They do consumer loans for small businesses.
Okay, but not homeowners.
Not homeowners, no.
I think that's what we were talking about earlier, not having the ability to do that, consumer loans. I think Jay, Mr. Alberstadt, mentioned grant programs for that $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to move away from the word loan and specifically focus in on what type of grant programs, because I believe when we initially got started, we were looking at a grant program for the homeowners in specific areas of the city. I'd like to continue in that stream to see if we could do that for our people out there that actually have a need. And of course, it's going to require some more dialogue on this, but I think we can still come up with something and go from there.
I don't think it would require more monitoring than we would have. I mean, in the consumer loan program, you weren't just going to hand somebody a check and say, do what you promised, were you? I mean,
Oh, no, absolutely not.
and I think you could do the same thing with grant funding, and make sure that they've done the things that they had promised to do before they get their hands on the money.
Absolutely.
Accept invoices. I don't want it to be like RCAP grants where they have to spend their own funds and wait for a reimbursement.
Right.
That's painful.
Yeah.
So in terms of procedurally, Mr. Officer, do you want to have a study session to review this and then vote at the next
So
meeting?
is there any urgency?
Is that?
No, I can just inform the city that the board wants
Yeah.
further dialogue on the matter, and we can certainly talk through, we can certainly structure something the same as we did with E there as a deferred payment loan. I hate to use the word loan, but I mean, really we do that already with our other programs.
Mm-hmm.
They're loans. It's an affordability period on a property that, as long as they live there, they get the money grant. It's a grant at the end of that period. This is revenue replacement fund, so it doesn't have the same strings attached to it as if it was ARPA funds. Certainly, but we're under that agreement with the city, so we just need board discussion and then, of course, the city's agreement to enter into that contract.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable kind of fleshing it out just a little bit more. These are, we want to make sure that our programming is as effective and hits the streets as soon as possible, but also being effective and meeting the long-term needs of our community. So it's a bit of a balance.
Okay, yeah, no, understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
And of course, we have some timelines on us with the ARPA funds. So I want to be able to make sure that we are doing what's necessary as far as making the decisions and making sure that those funds are available and that the public is well aware of that.
Okay.
Including I'm going to make a joke about fixing the heat here in the council chambers. Maybe council could apply. It's a little chilly here sometimes. So would it be okay to request a study session and then be better prepared for conversation and a board vote at our next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As well as table the movement of the 2.5 million, right?
Yeah.
We're going to table that, right?
Correct. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Good conversation. Next, let's see, item number 3, ARP Housing Plan Program Update.
All right, so in your packet that you got today, wasn't unfortunately in there on Friday when I emailed it out, I got together yesterday, is a program update. At the last board meeting, Chuck had requested that, to provide the board a full overview of where all of our other ARPA-funded housing programs are. And so to touch on the first one there is blight mitigation, which was 1.5 and change. We've identified 44 properties for acquisition. We have completed the legal process of 5 so far that were filed in November. And then, like I said, we have several more hearings in the next several weeks and months, and the process will continue as we work to identify properties. 44 properties are identified, like I said. In total of those properties, $166,900 is the total appraised value of any of the properties that had a value at the time in which we appraised them, and that would be considered just compensation if we got to that point of the legal condemnation process. So estimated, if we did acquire all of the properties that had demolition, we estimate there's $332,500 in demolition costs. Total amongst all of those 44 properties, $170,000 in legal costs. Total estimated allocation currently of $669,400, with a remaining balance of $873,000 for that program. So, like I said, a couple weeks ago when we met with the city, they see our financial statements and they see the money we've drawn down from our ARPA funds. And as you can see in what was provided to the board, there's a big difference between what's in motion and what the city sees. So there was a lot of concern there. And so, I wanted to provide kind of a paint the picture for what we have in the process and the funding that is actually going to hit the checking account once it all comes back and the bills finally start to roll in. So we're almost, I wouldn't say halfway, probably about, 3/8 of the way allocated on the blight program, and we certainly have other properties. I think we already have 25 properties identified that weren't included in this. They're in that early phase, but there's a lot of properties that are in that process. So that's where the blight mitigation program is. I know last Thursday, Jake and I visited 12 properties to prepare for court this week. It's a telltale sign when we go in the neighborhood, and the minute we approach the door, neighbors come out and they want to talk to you. And their first question typically is, when are you tearing it down? I've lived next to this for 8 years. It's been vacant. I've had to call the police on squatters, but their first question is always, when are you tearing it down? And, so we know, we're trying to help the neighbors, and give them a nice, safe place to live. I mean, we went into one property and we're fairly certain we went in the front door and somebody went out the back door at the same time. I mean, so we see it, and we in talking to code enforcement as we've demolished these properties, they're finding other places. And so some of the properties that necessarily weren't a haven for vagrants 6 months ago, now that we've demolished 50 properties this year, are now where they're going. And so we're just chasing people around vacant properties as we work through it. But, the neighbors can attest to the benefit of the program within the neighborhoods. Historic preservation was originally funded at $841,500. In working with the Historic Review Commission, we've approved 46 projects for funding. That's a total allocation of $586,000 has been allocated. That includes $441,763 in matching funds, owners, matching funds toward the grant funds. Keeping in mind that it's $15,000 max grant award, we're averaging about $12,739 average per project. And that is a reimbursable grant for historical preservation type activities as approved by the HRC. So we have a $254,000 remaining budget in that program. And far more applicants than we have funding for. So that has been a well-received program, and certainly something that, given the opportunity, we would look to move some money into that category or seek additional funding for that, whether it be additional grant funds through state, federal, whatever the case would be, to help assist with continuing that program beyond ARPA funding. East Bayfront Greenway Trail, $1.5 million. If you remember from the last board meeting, the draft plan was provided to the board. So we were looking at that. We currently have 7 properties under contract for purchase. That includes a couple of distressed properties that were up for a private sale that we've entered into sales agreements on, along with some vacant lots that were owned by individuals, you know, who property was torn down due to a fire or whatever the case would be, that we're entering into an agreement to purchase those properties and include them as part of the trail project. Right now we have $79,500 in sales contracts. We've allocated $92,000 to the project. Michael Baker's estimated cost for phase 1 was $2.7 million. So we have a gap to fill. We're going to look at that phase 1 starting at the 6th and Parade Street area, where we currently hold and own a pocket park that served Erie, put together a few years ago as kind of the first part of where we're going to get some estimates and plans together on starting the development of this trail system, and as we work toward applying for other grants and funding through the state's Greenway program. New production, $931,200. This is the only program that currently to date hasn't had any funds expended. Looking at getting an RFP out to identify developers interested in rehabilitating or building new housing stock as a subsidy program, as an ability to fill that gap between the cost to rehabilitate and the ultimate sales value, with the sales value being an affordable level to match up with the 300 FPG as identified in the ARPA final rule. So that's where that's going. Just really trying to finalize an RFP for that to have out before the end of October, early November. Again, to identify developers who want to utilize that funding to drive, again, that rehabilitated property and home ownership.
Are you going to be, sorry to interrupt,
no, you're good,
setting specific maximum sale prices in the RFP?
Yes. Yes, we're working through a couple different matrices to try to set that so that we can make it as clear as possible without posing too many questions during that period.
Thank you.
And then the Healthy Homes Program, $2.7 million. Currently we have 90 approved applications, and you'll see, and I'm working on getting this up on the website. The last page of your packet is a map identifying the 90 approved projects currently under the program. And once I get that hopefully embedded on the website, I'm going to put the blighted properties on the map as well. It's interactive. When you hover over it, the address pops up with the name of the occupant and the funding that was allocated for that. But I just wanted to get the board a visual on that. But like I said, 90 approved applications. There's another 200 plus applications that we have in the pipeline for the city of Erie. So, you know, we're working through those, but if you look at the numbers, we don't have enough money to facilitate the need. So, you know, certainly, again, looking at the different funding sources, and of course, we still have our lead hazard control program and the other streams of funding that we're trying to put toward that. But $1.3 million has been allocated so far, $16,000 total average project cost, with about $1.1 million remaining in funding. And I think Holly had estimated that out to 40 properties if we allocate it out.
Based on the max allocation, it would be 44 units roughly. Going by the average per project is around 17, which I guess to maybe as many as 60, 65.
So when we look at that, we look at the amount of funding, that we have and what we would need. So, just trying to, again, paint that picture because, we look at what we've drawn down. We have contracts out there and we're just waiting for projects to get finished. We're identifying contractors and moving that forward. So, and then the last one was the administrative funding to the authority, just to look at how long, and giving the December of 2026, I feel we're doing a good job at making sure we're not overstretching ourselves, that we have the funding there to maintain these programs as sustainable through the end of that funding. And then also I just included for the board was just the latest financial reporting on each of the individual ARPA programs, and what is the cumulative drawdowns to date are and what the available balance is. And like I said, if you compare those two different papers, you're going to see some difference in what is there, but I wanted to try to, like I said, paint that picture as far as what we have that's on the streets currently. And not that so the ARPA funding, if you remember, qualified census tracts were a part of it, and we were working on this morning. The 2024 QCTs are out, and we've lost a couple on the map, and granted, through ARPA funds, we're as long as it was a QCT from the point when ARPA funds were passed, we can utilize it as a QCT. But we have gained another qualified census tract out in the Fairmont-McClelland area, so just another way to where we can prioritize individuals in a certain area without the need for a COVID impact. Yeah. So it just, continues to change as time goes on, and we continue to monitor where this funding can go and what we can use it for.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to my concentration of resources to really make an impact or make it available for everybody. And I suppose each program, it could be different by each program, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think when you look at the map, there's certainly some deserts within the city of Erie that we don't have any approved projects in, and certainly, we'll try to figure out how we can try to get some projects in those areas. We want it to be as holistic for the city of Erie as possible, keeping in mind the qualified census tracts are our priority, but that there's a great need around, and I don't think I said it, but the three main things that the Healthy Homes program is funding is roofing, electrical, and plumbing, with roofing being the number one. And I mean, if you've ever driven through the city of Erie, you go to any block, you can probably point out 3 or 4 roofs that need replaced on every single block. So we know that's a need.
Is there a process or an interval where one might, or you might evaluate the program in terms of effectiveness? Like if it's a 3-year program and at the end of year 1, do you take a look at it and see if we can make any tweaks?
I think, and we've looked at, I think, especially the Healthy Homes program, probably about every 2 months through, and continue to look at what's working and what's not. We have looked at how we can better try to advertise projects, try to engage new contractors, look at different avenues as far as allowing the homeowner to source their own contractor bids. If they, we have applicants, I think we approved 25 last week, so we have applicants getting approved faster than we have contractors completing work. So if a homeowner wants to reach out to contractors and try to bring them in, we will certainly take bids from them. They'll utilize our bid documents, get a price, provide that to us, and we'll enter into a contract. And hopefully it'll help us bring a contractor on board that may not necessarily have worked with us, but given that the homeowner may have engaged them, that we can now enter into that contract, make sure they're compliant, and again, provide them the funding once the project is completed.
Okay, good.
Do we have the resources to do bids for the different contracts on the homes for homeowners?
Bids as far as...
So we have all these applications coming through, but we don't have enough contractors. Mm-hmm. Is it possible we can put out for approved contractors to bid on these properties?
We've listed some on our website and pushed them out over social media. Typically, that wasn't something that we historically did in the past because our funding was so restrictive because of lead abatement. But, so we've started that. The new website allows us the ability to put files in and have them automatically populate to the website. So we're working on that. The inspectors are currently putting those bids together. I think there's a couple out there right now, but that's going into the fall months here as contractors slow down. We're going to try to get some of those projects up there on the website that will be available. We've started to notify homeowners that, this could be an avenue. There may be a contractor calling you independently to come take a look at your project. We've tried to separate out ones that are necessarily exterior only, where a contractor wouldn't have to call a homeowner. They would just have to be aware that someone might be walking around your property. Just looking at many different pathways to try to expedite or make the process more productive as we, navigate some of the issues we're having with that contractor capacity.
All right, any other questions for Aaron? Hearing none, is there any other business to be conducted tonight? Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.